All right. Well, weird that I haven't met you in person. I've heard
Indeed.
lots of good things from
Awesome. Good
several
to hear.
people. So
Yeah, we
lovely
run
to
in
meet
very
you.
similar circles, so it's great
We
to
do.
finally connect.
We do. We do. Part of the reason I'm doing this whole thing is because my circles over the
Right.
last 25 years haven't been enough in the SEO and AI world.
Yeah.
Um, and I was having this lovely conversation with June Dershowitz, and I had asked her um, a question about like
Right.
now that we're in this AI, you
Mm,
know, rebirth or whatever.
yeah.
Actually she was speaking for me, and somebody asked her,
Right.
should people be more generalist or
Mm,
specialist?
right.
And
Right.
she's been doing this year-long writing challenge herself. And
Interesting.
she took that question and just dove deep, and she put a survey
Cool.
out, and like all of these people started answering the
Right.
question, and she realized, oh, it is not that easy to answer the question.
True.
And
Right.
I am a tried and true SME. Like I am an experimentation SME. I help
That's awesome.
others as a SME. It is my like deep.
Right.
Um, and you can't do that anymore. Like Will
No.
was a speaker at my conference last year, and he
Mm,
talked about the need to be, a comb, basically.
right.
Yeah,
Right.
you can be deep, but
Yep.
you also have to be wide. And it's
Fair.
more important than ever before in the
Yeah.
age of AI.
It's true.
And people are finding things differently
It's
today.
true. Yeah. The discovery is completely different.
It's so messed up. Like I
Yeah.
have, 20-year-olds, 22-year-old
Right.
and a 20-year-old. And when I ask them the question, how do you answer questions? How do you find things?
Yeah.
And it's totally different. And
It's
I'm like,
totally different. Yeah. It's so true. It's like, should I be using TikTok? Should I be using this channel? Yeah, it's so true.
right? Like
Yeah.
how, and if I'm helping brands optimize their websites in a silo,
True. True.
like, so I
It's
started my own year long.
I love that.
Yeah, because and I'm a teacher at heart. I
Cool.
started as a professor.
Yeah.
And I feel like if I can't teach it, I don't
Mm,
understand it.
fair.
So
Fair.
that's my goal.
Love
So
it.
I'm
That's
going to
awesome.
people much smarter than me. And I'm like, okay, so prepare yourself.
Right.
Um, I'm going to ask questions. You're probably going to be like, these aren't so
It's
smart. And that's
that's all
okay.
right. That's all
I'm going to
right.
dig deeper and deeper and
Yeah,
deeper.
100%.
Each time. And then my goal at the end of the year
Right.
is to work with the people who are willing. Um,
Right.
and then I'm going to try to do like a series of workshops to teach others what I learned over
Right.
the year.
Cool.
So that's
I
my
like
goal.
it. I
Okay.
love it.
Um, so we're going to go through these questions. Give it to me
I
in
will.
as simple terms as you can, because
Cool.
again, I'm dumb.
Right. Fair.
I'm not trying
You're
to be
not dumb.
this. I'm not dumb. I'm really smart in my area, but
Fair.
fish
Fair.
can't climb trees.
Fair. Fair.
And I'm
Exactly.
trying to explain the stuff that you are very intelligent about to people who also aren't intelligent about this.
Mm, fair. Fair.
Okay. So that's
Yep.
my goal.
Okay.
And then at the end of this, I do have I did pre-send you the questions that I'm going to ask you, but I also have a rapid fire
Yep.
round of questions I didn't send you intentionally.
Right.
Simple. I'm asking everybody, and you get
Right.
like 60 seconds each on those questions. And if you happen to have pre-looked at YouTube, you may
I,
have seen them. Did you see
I
Jeff?
did see some.
Yeah, yeah. So they're simple.
Fair.
Um, and so I will cut those into shorts that I share with everybody. Um, any questions?
I'm ready to roll when you are.
Cool.
Should be
Uh,
fun.
and I love your sweater.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate
You're like always in these
it.
sweaters, and they're so vibrant, and I love
Thank
them.
you. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so let me scroll back up to the top of my thing. All right. So number one, you've written that Reddit intent data can outperform keyword targeting. How should marketers rethink where they listen for audience signals?
Yeah, I think a lot of marketers have been afraid of Reddit for a long time because Reddit is seen as the place where marketers do not go. And I think for a lot of marketers, it comes back to kind of going back to the fundamentals of the craft of marketing, which is getting closer to the customer, hearing directly from the customer, and understanding the things that they are talking about on a day to day basis. Reddit is kind of like the free, open source. Like ability for marketers to kind of get that focus group in real time on the internet where you can go into Reddit and see what people are saying about your products, about your business, about your service, about your category, your industry, your niche, your competitors with no filters. And this is because humans are going to Reddit, they're going to forums to get answers from other people around bottom of funnel transactional, commercial intent related questions. When they're looking to pick between one mattress company and the next, they're going to Reddit and asking that question. If they're trying to buy a coffee machine that's going to last them for the next 30 years, they're going to a subreddit like Buy It for Life and they're asking that question because they know that the people in that community care about buying things that do actually last.
Yes.
So, what I believe marketers need to do in many ways is go back into time to the fundamentals of marketing where we actually care deeply about insights and care deeply about what our customers were saying rather than what a dashboard, a research tool was telling us we should do. We actually looked for insights from our customers and our audience and the people we serve to figure out what we should do next.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's more about like relationship marketing, which is something that we used to do really, really well, but
Right.
we needed to like actually talk to our customers and listening and engaging and talking to our customers. We can do that in the digital spaces in Reddit.
Exactly.
And so there used to be, I remember back in the day, I used to, do you remember Circuit City? It was like Best
No,
Buy but blue
I don't.
or red. I guess Best Buy is blue, but Circuit City is red. So
Okay.
yeah. So
Cool.
I used to work in the digital space at
Very
Circuit
cool.
City at
Cool.
corporate, and we did this world,
That's
but
awesome.
at the corporate headquarters,
Right.
and like we would build forums
Right.
instead of, and I kept pushing to say, the forums already exist. We
Mm,
shouldn't be trying to get them to come to our forums. We should go
right.
to the forums where people are already talking.
Yeah.
And I was like the emerging channels
That's so cool. I love
leader,
that.
and
That's
like Twitter
amazing.
was new.
Right.
And I
Right.
was like,
Yeah.
let's go to Twitter.
That's
Anyway,
so funny.
so
It's wild.
I think I kind of understand the concept.
Yeah.
I I guess what I'm struggling with is understanding how much of it is old and how much of it is new. So
Yeah, and I think a
and
lot of it is still the old. It's like
that
Reddit
people
has
dig
been
in.
around for a long time. Forums have been around since the beginning of the internet. And I just don't think they're going anywhere. I think that like the reason why the internet thrives is because of that human to human connection. And that's not going anywhere anytime soon. I think AI is throwing a little bit of a curveball by increasing the ability to write a lot of AI generated content at scale, and you can't really tell what's human and what's not. But at the end of the day, I still think that people care about their interests and they're going to gather in groups where their people are to hear and discuss their passions, whether it's a small video game of that indie players like, whether it's
Yeah,
a music group that a small group of people like, whether it's using AI tools to make your own music and just like talk to other people who are interested in that
passionate
type of
about the same.
work, right? Like
Yeah,
that's where forums thrive.
awesome. So you said you're putting marketing back into content marketing.
Yeah.
What's been lost?
Yeah.
And
So
what does that mean?
so for the last, I'd say 10 years, gurus, marketers have gone on stages at conferences and they've preached at the top of their lungs that content is king, create more content, write more content, the world will be yours. And a lot of marketers listened. A lot of marketers took that playbook and ran with it. And they wrote hundreds of blog posts every quarter. They started to churn out tons and tons of tweets, tons of LinkedIn posts. And then they were surprised when all of the algorithms started to change and they were no longer able to reach the people that they paid to like them on Facebook, to follow them on LinkedIn, or they were no longer ranking directly in Google within the SERP. And they wonder, like, okay, so we did all of that. We're doing content marketing, but they forget that marketing and content are two different things. Together, they are a beautiful thing. But for a lot of us, we just focused on the content side. Let's produce instead of actually thinking about how to distribute those stories or how to actually tap into the psychology of the people who we want to connect with and create stories that actually build affinity, build a connection, build that deeper relationship with the clients. Instead, everybody just started to create instead of understanding the fundamentals of marketing around distribution, amplification, research, storytelling, those key elements that make marketing not just a science, but also an art.
So it wasn't just about putting out content. It was about putting out content that mattered and that matched and that like market fit,
Exactly.
and then also distributing the content at the right time and the right pace to the right people.
Right. Yeah. Because most marketers, they kind of got stuck in the content calendar mindset, where if our content calendar says that we have to publish a blog post today, then that's just what we have to do. And then they every single day are on that clock pressing publish on these blog posts, but they don't do anything with them. They don't
So we as
amplify them.
experimenters and optimizers on my side, I understand what you're talking about. So
Yeah.
it's not just about like publish, publish, publish. It's also, is it the right content, the right fit, the
Right.
personalized content? Like,
Exactly.
okay,
And how do you get
that I
most
get.
more out of it? And how do you get
Yeah,
more out of it? Like if you spend 3 months working on an ebook, that ebook shouldn't live and die the day in which it gets published. You should
oh,
probably look at chapter one, two,
heartbreaking.
three and say, is there an insight in here that could be a status update on LinkedIn? Is
Yeah.
there a concept
Is there
within
a
here?
video that we can pull out of it? Is there another
Exactly.
way to make sure that we're maximizing this amazing insight or content in a way that it's getting the maximum visibility and
Exactly.
leadership? Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
So what, speaking of visibility, is visibility still the right goal for brands, or do we need to measure influence, trust, and authority differently now? And this is directly to the EEAT, the experience,
Yeah.
expertise, authoritativeness, hate that
Yeah.
word,
Yeah.
and trustworthiness that you talk about.
It all matters just the same, right? Like
Okay.
to achieve visibility, you need to demonstrate that you as a creator, as a brand, as a business are an expert, you have authority, you should be trusted, and those things go into it. And experience like those are the keys that allow for the visibility to happen. Google wants to see that you have those things: experience, expertise, authority, and trust. They want to understand and be able to look at your author page and know that you have those things. And the outcome of having those things is an increased level of visibility in pretty much every platform. On Google, you get an increased likelihood of being able to show up on the front page. In Reddit, if Redditors believe you are someone with expertise, you're more likely to have upvotes on your content. On the LLM side, when we're looking at whether or not ChatGPT visibility, Google AI mode visibility, all of these things, the authority, experience, expertise, and trustworthiness of your domain, your authors, your creators influence your visibility on these platforms. And when you go down a road where you're like, okay, but does this same methodology work across the board? I would argue it does, even with video content. If you look at some of the best video creators in the education space,
Mhm.
oftentimes they start their
Thanks, John
video
Green.
by saying things like, hey, my name is Ross Simmonds. I have a MBA in X, Y, and Z. I spent 20 years working with some of the top professional athletes in ABC, EFG. So what are
Mhm.
they doing when they say those words? They are establishing expertise, experience, authority, and trustworthiness so they can hook you after that first 2 minutes of a video so you'll get over the loop that YouTube will tell you is the key to actually get retention on a YouTube video. So after they've established that they have experience, expertise, authority, and trust, you're now more likely to watch a video. So this isn't some mind-blowing like AI futuristic marketer concept that only SEO should be thinking about. Every storyteller should be understanding experience, expertise, authority, and trustworthiness as an element of good communications. And then from that, the outcome is an increase in visibility on every single platform that is relevant today.
So nothing has changed. All of those things still matter.
Still
And
matter.
if
There's a
you don't
reason why
have them,
back in the
whether
day,
you're an
yeah,
AI or a
exactly.
human,
Right.
that's where the trust and the continued visibility comes
There's
in.
a reason why the toothpaste companies always say trusted by 9 out of 10 dentists, right? Like because we trust the experts. This is
Yeah.
not a massive shift in the way that marketing is done. It's just applying it to the digital age.
Okay. So in a world where AI summaries and community content dominate,
Mm.
do marketers and experimenters uh, need to think more like distribution strategists?
Yeah, that's a great question. I believe more than ever before, distribution is at the forefront of every plan. Like organizations, businesses, creators, experimenters need to be thinking distribution first because the LLMs are tracking across YouTube, they're tracking across Reddit, they're tracking across LinkedIn. They're going wherever the user asks them to go, and they'll exclude whatever the user asks them to exclude. So if I'm looking for software and I say, hey, ChatGPT, I want you to do research for me for the best CRM tool for a marketing agency doing ABC. Do not look for reviews on this site, or this site. Just exclusively focus on Reddit. My query, the robot, the AI is going to exclusively focus on Reddit. Now, here's what most marketers don't realize: you can't control that. You can't even track that. You have zero influence on that. And all of the tools that are saying this is the prompt volume, like a lot of those metrics are kind of like meh at this moment. And I think you should take them in some ways with a grain of salt. But what I think you need to internalize as marketers and as tinkerers is the reason why you need to think like a distribution specialist more than ever is because within these LLMs is this thing called memory. And within memory, there is a unique context that every experience that you have within LLM is going to have that is different from everyone else. Kelly, you could go to your LLM today and ask for a recommendation on the best bank, and you're going to get a complete different response than I would
Yep.
because of our location, because of what your LLMs know about you, all of those things. I
Ross, I
could,
actually did this. It's
right,
amazing to me that you asked, that you gave that example. I have a new bank today
that's cool.
because of that prompt.
Right. That's amazing. I love it. And it's interesting because everyone's going to get a different response
Yeah.
because you can provide different information. It has memory around questions you might have asked before. It might know that, oh, this person has 20 somethings who are already getting ready for university. So we can't have them going into high risk things. Like all of that context is there. But we're not talking about this as marketers, and that's mind blowing to me
Yeah.
because there's so many claims being made every single day that, oh, you can influence the LLM by just doing X, Y, and Z without realizing, okay, my prompts are very personal. Like my
Ah,
response is very personal. You can't know what I'm actually asking. So it's a wild time. So long story to a short question. Yes, I think distribution becomes at the forefront of a lot of the experimentation and things that marketers are thinking about.
so you often talk about execution over perfection. You said press publish even when you're not ready.
Yeah.
How does that philosophy help experimenters and marketers adapt faster in the
Mm.
AI-driven environment?
Yeah, I think this is where it comes down to like if you look in the mirror and you consider yourself an experimenter, a tinkerer, somebody who likes to build things quickly and test and have a hypothesis and then be met with a scientific result, this is your DNA. You need to take small bets in
Mhm.
content marketing. Take small bets on a regular basis in different channels because the more that you experiment and the more that you tinker, the more you're going to find an edge before everyone else. And all it takes is one. If you are able to find an edge before your competition, then you have a runway that has been created for you to continue to milk that experiment as something that is not even risky to you. When I first got on Reddit, it was 2013 when I wrote my first book on Reddit marketing. Everyone thought I was out to lunch. Everyone thought I was crazy. I had people yelling at me. I had people, I've been banned, blocked, every name in the book I was called. But for 10 plus years, I've been able to generate revenue from a channel that everyone ignored. So what's the next experiment? Now everybody's on it. Now everybody's like, oh, let's do Reddit marketing. It's getting chaos. So I have to now challenge myself again to experiment and find out what's next. But
Yeah.
that is the beauty to me of the game of marketing. It's this ever changing world of, okay, what's next? Is it the LLMs? Is it TikTok? Is it YouTube? Is it Snapchat? Do we need to try SMS? Like, I don't know. But the only way you figure it out is by experimenting. And I think you can find these small bets time and time again that give you that edge that you can just ride a wave of success for quite some time under the radar.
So, Alyssa Sharf, she's one of the first, actually, she was my first interview in this series.
Cool.
She calls this like the return to marketing fundamentals. Do you
Mm,
see that same pendulum
yeah,
swing in content?
I think so. I think this is one of the biggest. I think we're going through it. I would say there's a pendulum shift, but this is the most important time in marketing history since the dawn of the internet. And then prior to that, the TV.
Oh,
This
wow.
is a massive, massive shift that is happening
Is it
between,
because of Reddit or AI or both?
it has nothing to do with Reddit and more to do with consumer behavior changing. The consumer
In the way they
behavior,
find things?
the way people find things has fundamentally changed. Yes, search is important, but the way that we used to experience search is very different. It's not just 10 blue links anymore, it's an AI summary. We also need to acknowledge that this is kind of just the beginning, right? Like we're still, I don't even think we made it to first base yet. If we were to use a baseball analogy, we're still up to bat with this thing. And when we get to first base, what's going to change is I'm going to be able to say, hey, Google, can you go buy me a nice sweater? And it's going to
Yeah.
buy the sweater.
Yeah.
There's no me as a human
Yeah,
on
I
your
had an
website.
agentic panel about agentic commerce
Right.
panel on Halloween because trick
Mm,
or
I
treats,
love it. Trick or
agentic
treat.
shopping. It was like
Yeah.
whoa,
Right.
and it was yeah, we were all over, and I was the only one in the U.S. So they're like, okay,
Right.
Kelly, go try to make a
Right.
purchase, and
Right.
to go get it over there. Like I bought my husband a
That's
vest
wild. I
through
love it.
ChatGPT,
It's so wild.
um,
Yeah.
just to attempt
Yeah.
the process.
It's
If
pretty
they
cool.
want it, we will be sending it back
Right.
and replacing it because he loved it.
Fair. Fair.
But still, like,
Right. And that's just like, again, the beginning, right? Like, imagine when this is rolled out across Google products and
yes,
Google happens to have access to your calendar. Google has access to your emails.
on the
Google,
panel, on the
right.
panel, Louisa Delange says, I don't understand why OpenAI isn't working with Amazon. What
Mm,
came out in the news 2 days ago? Oh,
exactly.
guess what?
Yep. Partnership, 100%. Yeah. It's a wild time. So, this is, so
So
in
good.
one way, I believe the technology is creating one of the biggest consumer shifts.
Yes.
In the same way, though, the technology has created a interesting dichotomy where we have a necessity as humans to connect with real people. We have a desire as people to feel connected, to feel a place of connection with other humans. That is going to increase amidst the rise of AI avatars, AI bots, relationships with AIs, all of that stuff. People are going to crave that real human connection. I think that's going to happen. For a marketer, what does that present? It presents opportunity. It presents an opportunity for you as a brand to become a little bit more human, which is going back to the fundamentals of marketing. And with the rise of technology, you can do it better than ever before. You can make your brand more prominent, more human, more connected than ever before. So I think we're going through a massive shift there as well. That's going to have impacts that I can't even see.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think yes, we're going back to the fundamentals. but I think we're so early that no one really knows what's coming. And I think there's also a risk. This is the other piece, and people don't like to hear this, but um, I think there's a lot of risk for junior marketers, and I hate that.
I
I think there's a
I
lot of
I
risk.
agree. And it's not just junior marketers, it's the juniors in
Yeah,
every
every field,
vertical.
every
And
vertical.
what's happening is if we have that risk, then who's training them?
Exactly,
Or,
exactly.
or, or rather, it's
Who replaces the next?
that's what I mean. Yeah.
Who's going to move into the workforce to hit the middle management and then to the senior levels? I think that's where it's very tricky. It's going to be very, very interesting because in some ways, someone has to bet on the humans and
Someone
the
has to bet
organ.
on the humans, and
Someone has to
everybody's
bet on the
like,
humans.
well, it'll be fine because they'll be
Right.
able to work with AI. And I'm like, today the people
Right.
working with AI are using them as a co-pilot, and
Right.
they have the skills to
Exactly.
do the quality control to
Yep.
evaluate if the hallucinations are there.
That's
If
right.
we don't have the junior folks being trained by
Yep.
the senior folks, they won't have those skills to
No.
evaluate the quality of the content, the code, the
Right.
designs, the experimental analysis being
Yeah.
produced.
Right. Exactly. And there's a lot of like interesting perspectives on this where people will say, oh no, but they can use AI to coach them. Well, I'm pretty sure if you threw me into a surgery room and I had to do heart surgery and I had an AI as my partner, and then there was somebody who had 20 years experience doing heart surgery who also has AI, who are you going to pick? Who do
I'm
you
going to pick
want
the
to
person
do
with 20 years of experience every time.
every single time? So for up and coming marketers, if you do not get the experience to even know the essence of the craft, how an AI might give you directions, but you won't cognitively even know why you're doing the things that you do. And
And you
that,
won't know when it's wrong.
and you won't know when it's wrong. So I think we're going through a very interesting time in that regards as well. Every day I log in, I see organizations doing layoffs, etc. And that's scary. That's scary as well.
It's very scary. Read Empire of AI if you haven't already.
I will. I have not read that.
Mhm. Yes. So who are we designing for now? Humans, bots, or both?
I think for marketers today, you have to design for both. I think,
Mhm.
and but I don't think it's 50-50. I think you still need to lean more heavily towards the humans over the bots today. And the
Mhm.
reason is I think um, if you win the human, you win the wallet at the end of the day. The robots give you visibility, they might give you a bit of a presence, but the human controls the ultimate decision to buy. And the best way to surpass and to make AI not even relevant is to have a strong connection with the human. There
Right.
are certain brands that I know I'm going to buy from every time that they put out something that I like. I don't
Yeah. You
care
have that
if it's a
relationship.
knockoff. If somebody comes along with a version that looks similar, cool. I'm still going to stay loyal to the brand because
Same.
I know the quality. I know what I'm going to get. I know the
Me and
essence.
my zeros.
There you go. There you go. Right. So I think there's some of that
Yeah.
that marketers need to embrace, and
Yeah.
it's not easy. That's the other thing. I
Yeah.
know it's not easy. I know it's a long game, and in the tenure for a CMO is like 4 years. So they're like, do I care about this? But if you are truly in it with the right intentions of doing what's best for the business, the brand, etc., I think you have to think long term and go human first. I think that's the key. Win the heart, and then you win the wallet.
I can't remember which interview it was when I asked a similar question, but they pointed out that if we put the human first and we think about accessibility,
Mm,
if we think accessibility first,
right,
we are also thinking bot first.
right.
Interesting.
That is interesting. That
So
is interesting.
just by optimizing our sites for accessibility, I think it was Jono,
Okay,
because in the EU, there's the
right.
some
It's
the
huge.
European accessibility standards. I don't remember the
Yep.
law. It's required.
Right.
And if you optimize your site for accessibility standards, which is
Mm,
required by law, not just
yep.
because it's ethical and what we should
Exactly.
do, but if we do that, interestingly, you're also optimizing for the bots,
That makes sense. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
which
It's a
is
nice
really
win.
cool. So if
That
we
is
think
cool.
human first, we're also thinking bot first.
I like that. I like that. That's cool.
Benefits.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you see Reddit or other forums being the new top of the funnel for research and product discovery? Just
Ooh.
side quest here.
Yeah, I would say it's more bottom of funnel, middle of funnel than anything. I don't know if the top is where those platforms really will thrive for brands and businesses. But definitely in the bottom and middle of funnel. Like there's hundreds of transactions being decided upon while we speak, right? Like there are multiple SERP queries that you can type into where people are typing in best coffee mugs, best coffee
Wow.
machines, the best albums, the best
This is where
like
people are like making their purchase decisions.
people are making the purchase decision based off of what others are saying directly in Reddit. And it's owning the transactional and commercial queries. Like since 2024, we've been tracking in so Foundation, my company, we work primarily with B2B software companies. And
Mhm.
we had a hunch that Reddit was going to own the bottom of funnel. So for the last 2 years, we've been tracking reddit.com versus TrustRadius, Capterra, G2, softwareadvice.com, all of the review sites that you would list your software on and get customer feedback and reviews. And these sites dominated bottom of funnel related queries. Over the last 12 months, Reddit has surpassed all of them for bottom of funnel queries for B2B SaaS. We're not talking about tea. We're not talking about hair products. We're talking about sometimes hundreds of thousands of monthly recurring dollars per month for a
Yeah.
software and a solution. And Reddit being the number one result in the SERP, not these review sites. So when it comes to
Not
bottom of
see
funnel,
that.
I think Reddit dominates. It's
That's
absolutely
phenomenal.
wild. Yeah,
That I that blows me away. It wouldn't have surprised me if we were talking retail, if we were
right.
talking, you know, travel.
Right, right. Yeah. But even in B2B, where you would think, oh, Reddit has no place in the world of
Yeah.
B2B, no, Reddit is owning the bottom of the funnel, even in the B2B software boring spaces. It's a new age. So
All right.
yeah, it's a fascinating time.
So you recently shared Kevin Indig's analysis about Wikipedia losing 90 million visits.
Yeah, wild.
So what does that tell us about where content value is shifting?
To me, it's all shifting out of top of funnel. For so long, we as marketers got caught up in this idea of content marketing and we focused on the content side, where all we did was we looked at things that people wanted in our industry. So if I was a CRM tool, I would create a blog post called What is a CRM? And then I
Yeah.
would write a definition that is similar to what's
Yeah.
on Wikipedia about the
Yeah.
history of the CRM and how
Yeah.
people
We
used
wrote
to
about
use
that.
Rolodexes.
The sea
And
of
let's get it.
sameness. Yeah.
Yeah, like let's create an infographic that shows the life cycle of what CRMs used to be to today. And let's
Mhm.
generate organic traffic just to tell people this definition. And now we can get that answer. What is a CRM from AI overviews? We can get that answer to what is a CRM from ChatGPT,
In
Perplexity,
the
Claude,
zero, in the
in
Google zero
the
click.
summary, the zero
Oh,
click
yeah.
summary. So, what does that mean for marketers? I think the value is no longer in the top of funnel. I think it has shifted. I think top of funnel is all about visibility, and we have lost the ability in many ways to capture traffic to our domains that we could retarget, assuming that somebody who typed in what
So
is
they
a
need to go
CRM
deeper.
is our
Is that what
buyer.
you're saying?
They have to go, so the brands have to go attention oriented. So, what can you do as a brand to earn my attention? The
Mhm.
discoverability of what is a
Song and
CRM
dance?
isn't going to work. Yeah, in some ways. Like
Be more authentic.
how can you create a sales YouTube channel that is so interesting to me that I'm going to hit subscribe? And on
Right.
that video, you're going to talk to me about how to use a CRM to close $500,000 deals every month or whatever it might be.
Okay,
Make
talk
it
to me like
worthwhile.
a brand. Let's say, well, you know what? Let's do the whole bank thing. All
Yeah,
right.
let's do it.
I'm shopping for a new bank
Yeah.
because literally, not gonna lie to you, what happened to me? Somebody stole $14,000 from me to buy meat while I was in
What?
London. I'm not kidding. I was in London and I got a little text message as I was traveling home saying fraudulent charge on your credit card.
Wow.
And it
That's
wasn't
crazy.
the $14,000 in meat. They approved that charge.
That's
It was
crazy.
$250 on Google Ads. And I was like, well, I
Jeez.
do have Google Ads.
Right.
And so I was like, no, you should approve that. It
Wow.
wasn't me though. And so it took a while for us to figure it out. And so I decided, hey, I'm going to move banks
Yeah.
and I'm just going to consolidate all my banks because I had a
Right.
credit union, I have two business
Yep.
banks, and I had a personal bank. I'm going to consolidate
Yep.
all my banks. So I went
Mm,
shopping for banks. All right,
right.
make your pitch.
Yeah.
For a bank, you want my business.
Right.
How do you get
Yeah.
Kelly's business as a bank?
So at that point, you are no longer in a position where you are problem unaware. You know what your problem is. You have a bank that you're not happy with. So you're solution aware. Like you're at a middle of the funnel kind of decision making
Uh-huh.
process. Ideally though, in an ideal world, you would have been someone who I would have had a YouTube channel on where I'm talking about financial literacy in an engaging way. I might be talking about small business, finance tips, tax tips, having people talk about how to scale their business, having people talk about how to exit, have, like raise their family to be financially literate, all kinds of stuff like that. So you have brand equity with me. That would be my first starting point to get over the fact that now you're shopping. I don't want you to shop. I want you to know that I'm the folks that you want to go to. So at the beginning, I would have created a series of assets and stories to build that familiarity, connection, and trust with you. So you're subscribed to my content, not because I'm a bank, but because I'm a bank that provides you with value. Now, once you're at this point, though, I have to recognize that you're going through a discovery. And with that discovery, you're going to go through a wide range of different things. In this case, you used LLMs. So, how could I have positively impacted that approach? I would have looked at what are in your region, somewhere in the US, whereabouts are you?
I'm in Missouri.
Missouri. So I'm going to look at Missouri banks as a prompt and I'm going to understand what the LLM is most likely to cite as it relates to banks in Missouri, et cetera. And I'd probably do this across the entire states with all of the different cities, regions, et cetera. But I would go and find out, is there websites like bankrate.com, CNET, et cetera, that are talking about the best banks for security, the best banks for security in Missouri or for families in Missouri, whatever it might be, small businesses in Missouri, whatever these things are, I'm going to find them. And then I'm going to reach out to the folks who run those blogs. Again, we're going back into time. Remember when guest blogging
Right.
and those types of things were relevant? Maybe I'm going to be contributing to those domains with content about how to keep your bank secure, some of the most secure banks, all of those types of things. The best practices for keeping your bank unavoidable, inevitable to not be hacked, all that stuff, creating tons of content there. So when you go to your LLM and you ask that question, it's going to go to the internet, it's going to read all of these pieces that have already been produced, it's going to talk about my bank, and then it's going to inform the response to relay the message that I have articulated. Maybe I'm setting up affiliate partnerships. Maybe on my website, I'm going to have comparison pages that show me versus the competitors. Maybe we're going to create a subreddit that is dedicated to small
Nice.
business banking. And in that community, we're going to constantly provide value and educate people on how to keep their bank secure, how important is the second author of what is it called? The two-factor authentication. Like we're
Yeah,
going to make sure that we
yeah,
have that.
yeah.
All of those things are going to be written about in this subreddit and we're going to associate them with the bank. We're also going to go and probably look to establish better expertise, experience, authority, and trustworthiness by going and finding out, is there any awards for bank security? Does any of those things even exist? And then if so, everywhere on my website is going to say we were ranked the number one most secure
Nice.
bank in Missouri, in New York, in California, in Pittsburgh, in Philly, all over. So
Yeah.
That's the methodology to the madness. And you do that over the course of 12 months, and you not only are able to shift the narrative of your business on the internet, but you probably could have won Kelly as well.
Yep. That's nice. I like that. Um, so you talked about the content mode.
Yes. Yeah.
So how does AI change what counts as a content moat? And one note, it really reminds me, I talked to Jono about AI as content creator instead of consumer. And
Mm,
you said distribution beats creation.
yeah.
So if AI can now create endlessly, is distribution the only remaining moat?
Yeah. I think so. I do believe it is. I think there's one part of creation that is still untouchable, and that
Mm.
is taste and understanding
Mm.
the ability to actually create excellent content. I think it's
Mhm.
never been easier for all of us to create mediocre content. We can all create average content now. If you're an expert at anything, you should be able to create mediocre content in your niche, or you're not
Yay,
actually an expert,
AI.
right? Like you can use
Everybody
AI.
writes at a sea level.
Everyone can write a C level. It's
Mhm.
mediocrity. It has never been easier to achieve. Average can be achieved, and good.
Everybody's a white man now.
Yeah, there you go. And everything can even be good. Like you can create good content. Now, the excellence is the key differentiator. And I think that comes from understanding your audience, understanding your niche, your expertise, and bringing even some unique perspectives to the table that no one else is thinking about. So, as much as I'd say distribution is the only moat, I'd say one of the hardest things that still is really, really hard is to create actually excellent content. If you can do that, you
What
win.
makes it excellent?
What makes it excellent? So there's 4 E's that I talk about often: educational content, engaging, entertaining, and empowering content. Those 4 E's are at the crux of the best types of content that you can produce:
Educational, entertaining,
engaging and empowering. So
engaging,
you
and
wanted
empowering.
to
I like.
educate people by providing them with information that they never had before. You want to
Mhm.
make it entertaining by making it worth continuing to scroll. You want to
Yeah.
make it engaging so it is worth
I use
commenting on,
memes and animated.
sharing, exactly, all of those things. And then empowering, you want people to
Mhm.
feel so good after reading it that
100%.
they could run through a wall.
Yep.
Or you celebrate people inside of
Yep.
your content so they're more likely to share it and promote it and amplify it.
Yep.
Those things go into excellent content. Now, what also goes into excellent content is understanding your reader. Most
Mm.
people don't actually know what excellent looks like because most people, unfortunately, don't actually read a lot. And that's a whole new discussion and debate. But because people don't read anymore, like they'll read tweets, they'll read LinkedIn updates, but because people don't read books, I don't think they actually understand what good looks like anymore. And that's a problem. But I'm not
It's
going on that
true.
rant.
The TLDR world we live in is
Yeah.
painful.
It is painful. So it's harder for people to create great written word now because it's so difficult. But I would say it's becoming easier for people to create the video stuff because more people are consuming video than ever
Yeah,
before.
but it's also
And
short form content there.
it's also very short form. But you can reach some excellence levels. You just might not be as memorable with the short form stuff. There's a lot there. So on the short form side, you can create an excellent 30-second clip based off of good taste that's engaging, entertaining, empowering, all those things. But nobody
I
will
heard
remember
for
you.
teachers.
Yeah. But no one's going to
Remember,
remember them. I know. But people, however, I do think there's an art in also creating long form video. I think long
yeah,
form video is still very valuable.
the
And it's
ones that
important
can
too.
hold the attention.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. You
yeah,
look at Mr. Beast. Whether you love him, hate him, he's
yeah,
got videos that are an hour and 30 minutes, and people are listening and watching for an hour and 30 minutes.
yeah.
Something
That's
to
true.
be said
You're
for it.
right. You're right.
Um, but
You're right.
yeah, so excellence is still very difficult. As it relates to your moat, distribution does become the most important thing for the vast majority of brands because unfortunately, and your listeners might not want to hear this, most people won't actually ever reach excellence. Most creators most brands will never create an excellent asset. It sucks to hear, but they're not
Right.
willing to put in the work. They're not willing to do the research. They're not willing to have the extra level of sweat that goes into making a design at certain sections of your blog post that is a little bit interesting, that's unique, to reach out to 20 other people for their contributions. Most people don't have time for that. They're not willing to do it. So distribution becomes key. You have to get more spread. You have to hire influencers. You have to pay for affiliates. You have to pay for inclusions in the press. You have to pay for distribution. You have to share it more on LinkedIn, on X, on Facebook. You need to go on guest blogging tours where you're reaching out to everybody. You got to do that stuff because you're not
Guest
willing
blogging
to create.
tours are where you're getting other people to write in your blog.
Guest blogging tour would be I'm going to reach out to 10 different blogs in the marketing space and write a blog post for each of them that references the post that I created.
I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So Nick Hagler warned that AI browsers will collapse some journeys
Mm.
while expanding others.
Mm.
What journeys do you think will still matter?
I think the ones that will still matter, I think it's going to be different for everyone. I think every human's got a different spectrum of tolerance for AI and tolerance
Mhm.
for decisions being taken out of their own fingertips and eyeballs. Um,
Well, that's
person
interesting. Yeah,
Personally, I think
I'm a control freak.
right. So I think like certain people, like I bought my car without talking to someone, without seeing it, without driving it, without like any experience with it, all over email because I wanted to. And it was great. It was a great car.
And
And some
you know,
people would
I
never
just
ever do that.
made my last payment on my car, uh, that I guess I did the same. But
Cool.
I mean, I've had Toyota Priuses since the first Prius came out. So
Fair.
it's not
So
like
you're
it was,
very familiar with it.
yes,
Yeah, fair.
I just
But a
wanted a
lot,
green one.
right. There you go. But that's not most people. Like there's no world in which my dad would ever not test drive a car before he bought it. It's just not happening. There's
Yeah,
no world in which that type of transaction would happen. And I think the same thing exists for a lot of things. Like there's some people who would never be okay with an AI booking them a hotel without them seeing pictures of the hotel room. They're just not comfortable with that. Me,
yeah,
I probably wouldn't care. I wouldn't need to. However, at the same time, I'm definitely, and I know this is my world, not allowing an AI to buy me a sweater without me
yeah.
seeing a picture of the sweater.
No.
It's just not happening. It's not going down that way.
Uh-uh.
And I think it's again, there's a spectrum on what some people are okay with. Steve Jobs, he only had one color sweater. So he
Yeah.
probably would have had no issues with, yeah,
Black
just buy me a
turtleneck.
bunch of black turtlenecks. Just go.
Yeah.
Just buy me
Yeah.
20
Here's
black
my son.
turtlenecks. Don't need to see them. We're good. Right. So I
Yeah.
think it's a bit of a spectrum where everybody's level of comfort will be different.
Yeah.
Um, Eventually, and when I say eventually, I'm talking like neither of us are going to still be around. Eventually, I think it goes to zero, where I think we have a deeper level of trust with our AIs because they know us better.
Yeah.
Where the AIs that's in our home, whatever you want to call it, it might be Siri, it might be Alexa, whoever, they interact with us every single day. They know our taste, they see our clothes, they see our style, they know our size. We have a scale that is connected to it. They know how much we weigh, they know what size we are. All of that information is going to live on the cloud and we'll be able to get whatever we want at any point, at any time, connected to our credit card by saying a few words, and it will be tailored to us. I think that's the future. My children might grow up in that world. I don't think I will be in that world, but I might. We'll see. Things are moving quick.
They are. They are. If you were advising experimenters
Mm,
like me, what should they do the same? What should they do differently as discovery becomes increasingly AI and community driven?
right. So the things that you should do the same are invest the time and energy to be great storytellers. I think the
Mhm.
stories are at the heart of marketing and that will never change. However, the way in which those stories are told needs to shift and I think we as marketers, tinkerers, experimenters need to try new ways. Um, you have to move fast. Yeah, I would never reject AI. I think there's never been a more powerful technology than what we have at our fingertips right now. And
Mhm.
every experimenter should try as many tools as they can squeeze into 24 hours, whether
Mm.
it's video AI whether it's audio AI, whether it's agentic, whether it's an LLM, whatever it may be, I would experiment every day and set a goal for myself regularly. How many tools have I tried in the last month? If you're not testing at least one, you're probably behind. Test things, experiment with things, try to find an edge, even the things that are getting ripped to shreds on the internet, where everybody is yelling at them and saying, this is bad. Try it out. There's one tool, I don't know if you've ever tried Suno. It's like a music app. So you're able to write a prompt and it will create music for you. It's mind blowing.
I'll
And I
give you
don't
a
think,
tool. Try Moonbird. I think it's called Moon.
okay,
I'll send it to you afterwards because I have to look it up.
I'll
But
check it
my
out.
friend Ciara actually created a
Cool.
AI music translation app.
Fascinating. That's pretty
It's
cool.
connected to Shopify.
That's cool.
Shopify. What's the other one? Spotify.
Spotify.
There we
Spotify.
go. Sorry,
Cool.
it's close.
They
Uh,
get mixed up all the time.
yeah,
Yes. So
and you just
Spotify.
put your link to your song in any language and
Cool.
the language you want to translate it to. It gives you
Wow.
the general meaning of the song
Interesting.
at
Cool.
the top, and
That's
then
cool.
the original
Huh.
uh
That's
transcript
going to
of the
be
song,
huge
and
for
then
the
the
Super
translation.
Bowl with Bad Bunny playing. Everybody's going to be all over that tool. So
I know. Brilliant. Brilliant.
that's cool. I love it. That's awesome.
Okay. Do you think, speaking of storytelling, do you think brand storytelling will matter more or less as AI becomes the intermediary between humans and content?
I think it's going to, it depends on what we're talking about. If we're talking about does it matter to optimize for the LLMs, the answer is no. The story doesn't matter as much to
Mhm.
optimize for the LLMs. It's a way more technical and numbers game. However, if you are talking about the human connection brand trying to win and not rely on the LLMs, then yes, it becomes way more important because that's where you're going to build that connection that doesn't even need the AI to have an influence. So I do believe that it matters. I was seeing a study the other day, and I don't know who put it out there. It was a brief scroll, and I came across it. Someone said, I think it was Will Reynolds. I think he put up a post around banks who sponsored stadiums had an increase in visibility in the LLMs because of the frequency in which that bank was being talked about, because people were saying they are playing at XYZ Financial
At
Stadium.
Chase, yeah,
So, because the banks were being mentioned so frequently in reference to the stadium, they had an increased visibility for bank related queries. That to me is fascinating.
that is fascinating. I wasn't watching the time. We have 5 minutes left.
We do.
I have to
This
do
has
the
been
lightning
fun. Time
round.
flies when you're having fun.
Time flies. This has been amazing. Do you have a few minutes to go over if we have
Yeah,
to?
definitely.
Wonderful. Okay, so before I dive into the lightning rounds, I like to ask everybody two questions. First, who else should I talk to?
Mm, that's a great question. Have you chatted with Brittany Muller yet?
No,
You should
Brittany
chat with
Muller.
Brittany. Yes,
Okay,
you should chat with Brittany.
Brittany Muller. Okay. And can you connect me with her if I'm
Definitely.
not?
I can make
Okay.
that intro.
Okay,
100%.
thank you. So I'm writing that down, Brittany Muller. All right. And at the end of the year, once I've done all my stuff, I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to create workshops and all that stuff based on the
Cool.
interviews. Would you be interested in teaching
Yeah,
workshops?
definitely. Yeah,
Awesome.
definitely. 100%.
Yay. Yay. Last thing, this is side thing that I'm not uh, asking everybody, but you happen
No
to live
worries.
in the US. Uh, would you like to be a part of Experimentation Island? I
Oh,
haven't talked
what's
to Tone
that?
about this at all.
What is that? I'll have to get some more information. Send me the details for
It's the
sure.
conference that Will
Cool.
spoke at last year.
Cool. Very cool. Send me all the details.
Okay,
Definitely, if I'm
cool. All right,
available, we
so
can make
let's go
something
into
happen.
the lightning round. So like I
Cool.
said, the way this works is I have 5 questions. I'm asking every single person I interview the same 5 questions.
Okay.
We're obviously we're already recording, but I will clip these and
Okay.
put your answers on as shorts on YouTube and embedded in the interview that I'm going to
Sounds
be.
good.
Cool.
Awesome. I'm up
All
for
right.
it.
In one sentence, what is the biggest change in how people find things today versus 5 years ago?
Ooh. The biggest shift that has happened um, in the way that people find things today versus 5 years ago is the fact that discovery doesn't exclusively live within Google. People are going to YouTube to find out how to do things. They're going to TikTok to find out where to eat. They're going to Instagram to find out what to wear. They're going to Twitter to find out what software to buy. They're going to Reddit to figure out what tools to purchase. All of the ways in which we discover things is now fragmented.
Yeah. If you were advising a brand tomorrow, what's the single most important thing they should do differently to stay visible in the age of AI?
Ensure that they have landing pages on their website that target high intent commercial queries.
What's one thing SEOs or CROs, experimenters, should stop doing right now because it just no longer works?
Hmm. I would say there's no point right now worrying so much about what color the buttons are on sites. I think right now we have bigger fish to fry and we should have all of our attention on bigger problems.
That's good. Uh, what is the most misunderstood thing about AI and search?
The biggest misconception is that all of this isn't trackable. Everyone wants to track things and have perfect attribution and perfect metrics. It's impossible. We talked about memory earlier. You can't track memory. You can't even know what is being stored in my memory. It's all impossible. So, as much as the gurus and some of these people are out there preaching at the top of their lungs about the results of X, Y, and Z, and this is the volume, no one knows. It's all just a black box today.
Given how AI is changing the way people find things, if you could recommend one resource, a blog, a book, a podcast, or a person that every digital professional should know about right now, what would it be?
So this is going to feel old, but I would suggest folks actually go back and read Ogilvy on Advertising. It's one of the older marketing books about advertising, but I think we got to go back to fundamentals. So I would encourage people to go back and read some of the foundational texts that made up the industry that we all are in today.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool.
This was
Thanks, Kelly.
amazing, and I'll send you information about
Sounds good.
Experimentation Island. I'll talk to Tone,
Great.
and at the very least, I'd love you as a guest
Cool.
to attend because I think
Yeah.
you would add to the conversations.
Thank you so
Um,
much. Appreciate it.
but
Yeah. Keep me
after
posted. I'd love to learn more. And if I can make it work, then I'll be there. Awesome.
it's in February, so
Cool. Awesome.
in
I love it.
Georgia, so it's
Nice.
lovely.
That's
Hey,
cool.
where are
Very
you
cool.
based?
So I am in Canada. So I'm up on the East Coast, Nova
So
Scotia. So
you're
just,
so you
yeah.
may not want to come to the US. The last
Uh,
person I invited was like, yeah, not going to support your economy.
That's too
And I was
funny.
like, I
That's too
get
funny.
it. I
Yeah.
get it.
I'm in the States a lot, so I have no way of avoiding my a lot of our businesses in the States. So I'm down there all the time. But
Okay.
in Georgia, I haven't been since I was like 18, so it would be fun to get
St.
back.
Simon's
Yeah.
Island. It's
Yeah.
so beautiful. It's
That's
like
cool.
70, 80
Nice.
degrees in
That's awesome.
February. Oh,
Yeah. It's better than the snow that I'll probably have to shovel then. So I'll
that's
take
right.
it. Yeah, I
All
like
right.
it. Good to see you, Kelly. Thanks so much for the time. Appreciate it. Cheers.
You too. Bye-bye.